Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahakwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video I'll be profiling an article from worldisraelnews.com titled "Former U.S. Generals Urge Biden Administration to Arm Israel Heavily Against Iran." And this is just another example of biblical prophecy taking place right before our very eyes, because a war between the state of Israel, who for the rest of the video I'll be referring to as the 1948ers, and Iran will take place, and it is going to drag in these bigger nations down into that Middle Eastern region for the bigger battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the main part of World War III in Joel chapter 3, and the United States of America is going to be the 1948ers' main ally in this upcoming war and come to their aid. And we're just going to get into this article and get into some precepts just to show that fact. And hey, Apostle Tahar has deemed 2023 to be the year, the hopeful year that all prophecies come to their fulfillment. And Abaratazah, all these prophecies, including this one, does come to its fulfillment. But whether it's 2023 or not, when we see information like this come out, it just lets us know that our salvation is nearer than when we believed. So like we always tell you sincere Akim out there, now more than ever, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, pushing this word as hard as you possibly can to make your calling and election sure and be saved from all these calamities, judgments, mass death and destruction of Jacob's trouble, which is quickly coming our way. But this article was published on March 22nd of 2023. 44 retired officers from the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines published an open letter on Tuesday urging the United States to provide advanced weapons to the 1948ers to deter and prevent a nuclear Iran. The letter, organized by the J-ish Institute for National Security of America, JINSA, and published in the political publication The Hill, calls for the delivery to the 1948ers of C-46A aerial refueling tankers, which are used to fuel jets on long-range missions, which, over the past summer, the 1948ers did a major military drill simulating long-distance airstrikes against Iran called the Chariots of Fire military drill, and it not just involved the Air Force, but all branches of the 1948er military. And also, other drills took place involving the United States of America in helping the 1948ers in simulating an airstrike against Iranian nuclear facilities. F-15L and F-35 multi-role fighters and precision-guided bombs. As retired American military leaders who devoted our lives to the defense of our nation, we prefer a diplomatic solution that would genuinely end the threat posed by Iran's escalating nuclear program, which is just more Edomite American bullshit. Because if that's the case, then President Donald Trump, during his administration, at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu, wouldn't have pulled the United States of America out of the JCPOA, Iranian nuclear deal. The 1948ers won a war against Iran, and the U.S. won a war against Iran. Remember what General Wesley Clark said back around 2001 and 2002, that the U.S. military had a plan to take down, I believe it was 7 African and Middle Eastern nations in 5 years, and the last nation on that list was Iran. And then with the 1948ers, look up something called the Oded-Yinon Plan, which deals with a greater 1948er territorial expansion and balkanizing that Middle Eastern region so that any other nation is weak and can't oppose the 1948ers. But no such deal is imminent nor realistic, first and foremost through biblical prophecy. The letter said, the United States cannot pursue a deal while the Tehran regime brutalizes its own people and provides Russia with arms to target civilians in Ukraine. You mean just like how the U.S. and other NATO nations arm Ukraine and Zelensky's illegally set up regime? In February, the International Atomic Energy Agency, well, I'm going to skip that part, led by Air Force General Chuck Wald, retired, and Navy Vice Admiral John Byrd, retired, Tuesday's letter said there was only one way to prevent Iran from taking that step. The only thing that can stop Iran from crossing the nuclear threshold is a credible military threat, the letter said. Only the 1948ers offer that, since it alone demonstrates the will and effectiveness in containing and rolling back Iranian aggression and nuclear development. The Biden administration has repeatedly said that a return to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, is not on the agenda, but have also refused to say that the talks are dead. And ultimately, it is dead, and a war against Iran is going to take place, with the 1948ers fomenting some instance to justify them in attacking Iran, and it's going to drag in these bigger nations down into it to, again, play into the bigger battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. But now let's get into these precepts. This is Joel chapter 2, verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the Northern Army, the North American Army, the United States military, all branches, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, that Middle Eastern region. And the main staging ground for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat is going to be Saudi Arabia, which the U.S. has a presence in, along with having a presence in Iraq and a presence in Syria. The Most High has strategically set things up to have the United States military constantly involved in that Middle Eastern region, so that they'll have a foothold in there and be able to funnel in more personnel and military hardware for when this battle truly kicks off. And I will drive him into a land barren and desolate, with his face toward the East Sea. Now let's go to a map of the Middle East. You've got Saudi Arabia right here. And what do you have towards the east? The Persian Gulf. And what's above the Persian Gulf? Iran. And to the northeast, you've got the Tigris and Euphrates River and Iraq, which, like I just said, the U.S. has a military presence there. And you can see Syria right there. And his hinder part, or behind him, toward the utmost sea, which is speaking of the Red Sea. And recently, the U.S. and Russia have been courting Sudan to build military, economic, and political ties with them. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he had done great things. There's going to be a mass slaughter of U.S. military, as well as these other heathen militaries that are gathered down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat for the War of Armageddon. Hey, so if you're a soldier that finds yourself in the Middle East for this great battle, you better come to terms with that being your final resting place. But this is Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Edom, And the biblical Edomites are known today as these so-called white people. Your Americans, the British, Europeans, the Russians, the South Afrikaners, and those 1948ers over in the Holy Land right now who are of the tribe of Amalek of the nation of Edom. And his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. And that least of the flock is speaking of those 1948ers over in the Holy Land, because they're a small nation over there. And amongst the Edomites, they're a very small tribe. But as it says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Those 1948ers are going to do something to foment a conflict against Iran, which is going to draw out all these bigger nations down into that Middle Eastern region, that land barren and desolate for the War of Armageddon. On the side of the 1948ers, it's going to draw out the Northern Army, the United States, and these other NATO nations in. And on the side of Iran, it's going to drag in Russia, China, and her other allies. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. Now I'm going to close it out. In Joel chapter 3, I'm going to start at verse 9 and jump around a bit, because all these different geopolitical situations that are taking place is what this is ultimately leading to. The battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the main part of World War III, that War of Armageddon. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, the heathen Gentiles, prepare war against Iran, World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, nuclear war, because World War III will go nuclear, and the United States of America and the state of the 1948ers are going to get hit with nukes, and everybody there in both places is just going to be completely wiped off the face of the earth. The only people that have any chance of surviving are the elect of the nation of Israel in the United States of America, and any elect of the nation of Israel that may be in the Holy Land when this nuclear exchange takes place. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Like I said earlier in the video, the 1948ers had the chariots of fire military drill simulating an attack against Iran, and they also had joint drills with the U.S. doing the same thing. And then what? You've already got U.S. military presence in that Middle Eastern region, in Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iraq, and then you've also got Russia with a military presence in that Middle Eastern region, in Syria, due to them helping out Bashar al-Assad during the Syrian civil war. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Real quick, let's read the title of this article again. Former U.S. generals urge Biden administration to arm the 1948ers heavily against Iran. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. And an example of this is those Iranians. Hey, for the longest time, they were getting bullied by the U.S. and the West. But now that they've got Russia in their camp, and Russia's helping them build up their military arsenal, they're making big threats towards not just the 1948ers, but the United States of America as well, because they know that when they make a move against them, that's when their allies like Russia and China are going to be drawn in to come to their aid. And another example of the weak saying they're strong is North Korea. They're building up their nuclear arsenal, and they claim that they've got missiles that can reach the U.S. mainland. So they're telling the U.S. and South Korea, look, if you want to get things started, hey, we ready for it. An article just came out saying that there are 800,000 North Korean citizens that are ready to join the military to fight against the United States. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. The United States of America, the 1948ers, Iran, Russia, China, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, these other NATO nations, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh, and those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this great destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to release it, which is mainly going to happen after the Charagma, the Markofthebeast in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC MICROCHIPIMPLANT is mandatorily implemented, and we can see that that's right around the corner. You see these different banking firms having collapses and going through crises, and you're hearing these different central banks across the planet talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. We're moving towards a cashless digital society, which is going to be predicated upon that C-HIP implant. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh's Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And the reason these heathens are being gathered down into the valley of Jehoshaphat is so that they can be judged by the Most High for afflicting the apple of his eye, the children of Israel, which the true children of Israel are known today as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Let's jump up to verse 1. And what does the header read? The nations will be judged, the heathen nations. For behold, in those days and in that time, and we're living in these days and times, the last days, really the last seconds of the last days, when the elect of all 12 tribes of the nation of Israel are waking up and calling back on their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. As it says, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah, the southern kingdom, known as these the so-called Negroes, African Americans, so-called blacks, so-called West Indians, and Jerusalem, the northern kingdom, so-called Latinos and Native Americans, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, which again in the Hebrew is Yahweh's Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment. And I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel. And when you go into that word plead, it's shaphat, which means to judge, punish, vindicate. And I will plead with them, I will judge them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, which, all 12 tribes have been scattered all across the planet. Yet the transatlantic slave trade, where the southern kingdom was taken from the west coast of Africa to the Americas, and then when those European Edomite colonizers came to the Americas, they enslaved a lot of the northern kingdom, and a lot of them were shipped to other parts all across the planet. You had so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans all shackled up on those slave ships and parted my land. And we can see that the Holy Land is parted between squatters that don't belong there, those 1948ers, those Amalekite Edomites, as well as those Palestinian Arabs, or so-called Arabs, who are Ishmaelites. And hey, like I said earlier, the Holy Land is going to get hit with nukes, and those squatters are going to be evicted by fire. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. What does that sound like? Slavery. Now let's jump back down to verse 13. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And when we see articles like this, we know that the day of Yahweh is very near in the valley of decision, and our salvation is nearer than when we believed. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the biblical Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.